Hello again. It's Dr. Larry Bush from the Palm Beach County Medical Society, and thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this video. A few messages about the COVID-19 pandemic or coronavirus in general, but also specifically to mention to you that a vaccine trial is about to get up underway here in Palm Beach County that our patients, our staffs, and the community as a whole will have access to and may be something they'd be interested in. As you know, humankind's always suffered from infections, and they've been one of the leading causes of death throughout history. Most infectious diseases that have led to morbidity and mortality have been either respiratory or diarrhea diseases for obvious reasons because of the way they're spread. Respiratory diseases, as you know, by airborne droplets that can just come out when we cough or we speak or we sneeze or we just sing. And also by diarrhea diseases by the fact of the matter that water is commonly contaminated in parts of the world by animals and humans carrying pathogens. Now, in any infectious disease or pandemic, there's a triad, and this triad includes the pathogen, the environment, and the host. As far as what we can do for the pathogen, what we can do is we need to live with it, tolerate it, because the pathogens outnumber humans by large numbers, have been here before us, and likely are going to be here forever. But what we do have for pathogens, or we have chemicals that we call antimicrobials or antibiotics or antivirals that we can take to kill the pathogen either before it's entered our body or after. So it could either be treatment or prophylaxis. And as we all know, we're running out of antibiotics that are effective because of the development of resistance. So then what can we do to the other part of the triad, the environment? Well, sanitation. And we, in a pandemic like COVID-19, can affect the environment by stopping the contamination by us wearing our masks or by keeping our hands clean with soap and water or sanitizers. And that brings us to the third component, which is the host. Now, there's not a lot you can do to the host other than treat and prevent. And when we're treating, we're usually treating the host, meaning the human, after they become actively infected. So first you have to have the ability to diagnose the infection and know what the pathogen is. Well, the laboratory has become very adept at doing this through different culture techniques and molecular modes of diagnosis. As far as treatment, as I mentioned, we are running low on antibiotics at work. And of course, treatment can also be treatment as you're infected or prophylaxis. We all have heard of PrEP, take before one has exposure to HIV to prevent it. We also can take influenza medications, whether it be Tamiflu or Baloxavir, that can prevent influenza if you've been exposed to it. So those are some of the things we can do with the host. But fortunately, we as the host have been born with an immune system. And the immune system is what keeps us going, keeps us populating, keeps us alive, and clearly is the most effective way for us to deal with pathogens. Now, everybody's immune system is made up of two components. The first component being innate, things like our skin, our mucous membranes, the development of fever. We all have that, and that's the innate immune system. And that's followed by the adaptive immune system, meaning we adapt to the situation as humans. Now, that can either active naturally, we get exposed to a virus or a bacteria and we produce immunity, or it can happen by artificial exposure, where we can actually produce the same type of immunity as having been exposed to the organism by things like vaccination. Now, natural immunity always is better, but unfortunately it occurs after we've been infected. Some natural immunity is passive. How's that? When we get antibodies from our mother via the placenta, via breast milk. And the rest of the adaptive immune system is having been exposed to the pathogen. Now, when we do that artificially, we use vaccines. So the purpose of the vaccine is to mirror the adaptive immune system that we normally would have after exposure, but giving it to us pre-exposure so that we have our soldiers. And the soldiers, as you know, the military is made up of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. Our immune system is made up of two major components. The humoral component, which are antibodies, and the cellular component, which we all know is things like lymphocytes and particularly types of T cells. Now, there's been a lot of negative talk about vaccines over the past few decades. And the reason why I think that is because people are suspect of what we in the medical community often dictate as dogma. But the other reason is because everybody will tell you, I've had a vaccine and it didn't prevent the infection. Well, nothing's foolproof. Secondly, people will tell you that vaccines can cause harm. And we've heard things such as autism and multiple sclerosis and other conditions from vaccines. Well, that's the paradox of vaccination. As you vaccinate somebody and you decrease the amount of natural disease in an environment, it's more likely that the person is going to have a side effect from the vaccine than actually get the infection, because we created herd immunity. But most of the so-called side effects from vaccines, I'll use autism as an example, have never really been proven, and in fact have been disproven. But having said that, I can tell you that the largest effect on humankind with infectious diseases have been sanitation and vaccination. So the first vaccine that Jenner looked at was smallpox, and it was noticed that people who recovered, if they would take the fluid from the smallpox and inject it into another person, they could prevent smallpox. And that was the beginning of the vaccine era, and obviously it's grown and moved along and has been very beneficial since that time. So how does that play into the current coronavirus pandemic? Well, as you know, there have been at least 140 some vaccines that have been going through research and development. And a handful of them, or approximately 24, have entered early phases of trials. Some of them have moved on to phase 3. And about 4 vaccines now are about to enter phase 3. And the phase 3 is where if you've taken it from the bench to showing efficacy as far as producing immunity, to showing safety, and now seeing if it really does what you hope it does, what can do, which is prevent coronavirus or COVID-19. So we've heard of the Moderna vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, and we've heard of the Oxford University AstraZeneca vaccine. Well, I've been fortunate to be appointed the principal investigator for the Oxford University AstraZeneca vaccine, that working along with Headlands Research and their site, GEM Research, right here in Palm Beach County, we're about to launch the Oxford University AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine trial. And what this will do is it will provide people to have a chance of getting vaccinated. For every 2 that get vaccinated, 1 will get a placebo vaccine. They'll get a vaccine on day 1, and 4 weeks later get the second booster, because it's been shown that when you do that, this vaccine not only produces robust antibodies, what we call neutralizing antibodies, what separates this vaccine out from some of the others is it also produces a cell-mediated immune response, activated T cells, that kill cells that have been infected with coronavirus. Now, how does that work? Well, the Oxford University researchers took a previous platform where they would take a virus, so it's called a viral vector vaccine, and in this case they used a chimpanzee adenovirus, a common cold virus that humans have never been exposed to. They make that virus non-replicative, so we cannot get infected with it. And what they do with that virus, that chimpanzee adenovirus, is they attach the spike protein of the coronavirus. So nobody who gets this vaccine will actually get injected with a coronavirus, just a protein part of the coronavirus. What happens? Well, it's been shown in approximately 1,100 people, and this is published in Lancet in July 2020, that after the second booster and even after the first, they produce a significant amount of neutralizing antibodies against that protein, the S protein, which stops it from binding to cells. But it also uniquely produces a T cell response which can kill cells that have become infected. So it's a dual action vaccine, which is very, very promising. So those who are interested in having enrollment in this vaccine trial, the phone number is 561-770-7370. That's the GEM Research Company or study working along with Headlands Research right here in Palm Beach County. We're excited about it. I think the scientific community is excited about it. And it will be great if this becomes at least one of the vaccines that get onto early phase use so we can bring this pandemic to a rapid end. Before I end, I want to point out one thing. As we all know, the JAMA, I think, is a very respectable medical journal. And in this week's JAMA, there's an article called Communicating Science in the Time of a Pandemic. And what the authors go on from the University of Minnesota to say is we really need to watch what we're saying to our patients, to the media, and the public forum in general. What is the information we're really giving? How much science is behind it? Let me just take the moment to read their last sentence and tell you what they said. They say, excuse me, time, even a few moments daily, can help prevent harm. Any professional communicating about this pandemic should spend such time to reflect on how the words and the data matter, and then act accordingly. You know, the other day I was watching a document on Apollo 13, and it was interesting. There's two ways to look at Apollo 13. The mission to Mars that did not get there because of a mechanical flaw in the spaceship as it was approaching, the mission to the moon that did not get there as it was approaching the moon at the end. Some would say, well, that was a failed mission. I think the other way to look at that is, no, that was a success. That was a group of people here at NASA on the ground working together, not to find out what's wrong, but to find out how to fix it. That's what we as a medical community have to do to fix this pandemic. And if we work together, perhaps with these vaccines that will come on board shortly, that will be the answer. Thank you for listening.